The first speaker's speech title is My Turbulent Life. His speech is going to be an icebreaker at 5 to 7 minutes. He's in the Competent Communicator Program #1, his very first speech for our club. Roy is excited to be a new member of the Sales Mastery Club. He hopes to become a better public speaker and a better communicator. Roy is an LA native and will talk about growing up here, his experience living abroad, and returning home to the city of Los Angeles. Please welcome Roy.
Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guests. My name is Roy Houlette. In case you didn't know, Houlette is of French origins. People all the time ask me if I'm French. Truth be told, I'm not. My dad was adopted when he was 8 years old and decided to take his adopted father's name. Houlette is also a Huguenot name. In case you didn't know, the Huguenots were a group of Protestants that were persecuted in France during the 1700s for religious persecution. Apparently, the Catholics and Protestants didn't like each other very much back then. Anyway, I'm an LA native. I grew up near the Crenshaw district where, unfortunately, I used to get beaten up almost every day as a kid. Apparently, some people didn't like me very much either. However, it taught me character and how to face my fears and not run away from them. Three aspects of my life that I want to talk about now include growing up here in LA, living as an expatriate overseas, and returning back home to my Angelino roots. Growing up on the streets of LA was a definite blast. I used to love playing sports, and the competition was really, really high in my neighborhoods. There was rarely any shortage of fun, and I got caught up in both the good and bad of it. In the middle of high school, my parents apparently had enough after getting robbed twice in the same week, and decided to move to the suburbs of Santa Clarita. This was a total culture shock to me at first, as everywhere I turned, I saw the same looking people everywhere. And there wasn't a lot of fun things to do like there was back home. Ironically, I used to get into more trouble here than I did when I lived in the hood. Fortunately, I survived, where I went to college, fell in love with the movies, and eventually enrolled in the film school. After film school, I got my first big break working as an intern for Jessica Lange's production company at the now defunct Orion Pictures. I worked there for several years, even got married in between, before transitioning over to Paramount's Riot, even though I was a very small fish in a very large pond of sharks. I was slowly creeping up the food chain, though, from getting people's coffee and their dry cleaning to submitting script notes and optioning material for my boss's production company. During this time, my then wife decided to move to Germany for reasons of severe homesickness, and we proceeded to carry out a long-distance relationship for 1.5 years. After months of not being able to eat, sleep, or think straight, I decided to pack it up and move to Germany. People thought I was nuts in the beginning, leaving Hollywood behind for Germany of all places. But what was I supposed to do? I didn't know rarely anybody over there. My language skills were inferior, aside from being proficient in German profanity. But my heart was over there, and I had to go get it. My intention was to convince my then wife to move back home to LA with me. However, that attempt was short-lived, as was my marriage. Luckily, I got a job opportunity that offered me a lot more money than the one at Paramount did, and I decided to stay and give it a shot. Instead of optioning materials such as books, screenplays, and magazine articles, my job was to acquire full-length, completed feature films and then license them back to European TV stations and distribution companies. It was a very opportunistic time in that the landscape of Hollywood was shifting with more focus overseas. And I found myself working for a large European company with deep pockets and tremendous influence in Hollywood. It was a very critical time in my career because I got to experience many things that I wouldn't have had if I moved back to LA just a year earlier. I was also one of the few Americans working in the German film business at the time. And given my Hollywood career, however short it was, they thought I knew everything about movie making. I let them think that too. They even allowed me to produce a German language movie, which was a career changer for me, even though it tanked at the German box office a year later. Shortly thereafter, I was given another job opportunity to work at a European film fund. During this time, we co-financed about 30 movies over a 3-year period. Unfortunately, the tax mechanism that drove these funds were set back, as the tax loophole that rewarded investors who participated in these funds closed. After a year and a dead romantic relationship later, I decided to move back home to the City of Angels. At first, I thought that all the production companies and studios would come beating down my door begging to give me a job, given my tremendous European experiences. However, that never came to be, as we were stuck in the middle of a recession. After a year of unemployment, I decided to start my own consulting company representing European TV stations here in Hollywood. It was during this time I met my future wife. We met online. She was my third date, and the rest is history. After 6 months of dating, we decided to spend our Christmas holidays together, backpacking throughout Central America, in particular Nicaragua, Guatemala, and the Honduras. Those dangerous chicken bus rides never bothered me much, though, because I was accompanied by the love of my life. During the end of our trip, we got engaged in Antigua, Guatemala, and we married the following year. 2 kids and a mortgage later, I couldn't be a happier camper. Truthfully, I was a little bit nervous at first getting remarried after my first failed attempt. But sometimes you gotta face your fear head on and hope for the best. Kind of like public speaking, right? In conclusion, my turbulent life has led me back to LA after living 11 long years in Germany and surviving the streets of LA. I'm gonna leave you now with a favorite quote of mine. Never be afraid to try something new. Remember, amateurs built the Ark. Professionals built the Titanic. That was